The internet wrestling community. Man, they just love to complain about everything, don't they? Well, except for the times when they don't. As throughout recent years, there have been a fair amount of acts out there that the IWC has weirdly globbed onto, even if it was only temporary. Now, love them or hate them, or even if you've never heard of them, 7 of these wrestlers are the topic of this episode. Because today... Thank you to all my Patreon supporters such as Dakari Garmin and Rodney Harris. You really help to keep this channel going. Thank you. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I'm not necessarily a fan of every single act on this list, or, well, any of them. But, in reality...
What? How dare you think differently than me?
Great, the head voices are back. In reality, this video is not about whether or not you like these talents, it's just a list compiling several wrestlers that a small vocal minority seemingly never shut up about. Until, well, they did. And yes, I'm sure that there are still some straggler fans that are still holding on to some of these guys. And furthermore, when it comes to when their relative popularity all began, it should also be...
Well, I bet you I liked them before anyone else ever did.
It should also be noted that it doesn't matter if you liked them before they were cool, just realize the overall message of this list. As this is just supposed to be a fun episode where we talk about some of the internet's flavors of the month.
Really? Just 1 month?
And no, I don't mean exactly a month, it's just a figure of speech. Anyway, with all that being said, let's just get into the video. Chris Monaco, who really did work for a pizzeria, would suddenly become known to the entire world as Luigi Primo, the pizza twirling wrestler. Now, despite being in the wrestling industry for 7 years, he became an overnight sensation rather recently, ever since a clip of his work was posted on Twitter by the account Wrestling with Unicorns, which has already registered more than 5.5 million views and had Mark Zuckerberg commenting on it. Luigi first performed the character 7 years ago, and he did so as a heel, mocking the local Texas audience and proclaiming that Italy was better than Texas. However, after that, when he next portrayed the character, he would dress up his opponent like a pizza, and to his surprise, this got over greatly with the crowd, which led to his babyface turn. Then, 7 years and 1 Twitter clip later, Luigi Primo would find himself on All Elite Wrestling television. And continuing with yet another AEW wrestler, next we have Danhausen, which is actually his real life last name, his first name being Donovan. Hailing from Detroit, Michigan, Danhausen would make his debut on October 18, 2013, at the event called BLP Slamilton 2. However, despite this, the character really wouldn't start catching on until he joined Ring of Honor in 2019, but that was simply a precursor until he would gain even more notoriety after joining All Elite Wrestling. Now, Danhausen himself has described that his character has been inspired by Conan O'Brien, to which Danhausen even got a chance to appear on O'Brien's podcast to discuss the character even further. Oh, and he was also additionally inspired by Mark Hamill's Joker too. And even though he may not be a household name, he has been able to use what popularity he does have and leverage that into other endeavors, such as his signature coffee blend called Coffeehausen. Oh, and while we're on the subject of Danhausen, he also teamed up with Orange Cassidy. And if you're expecting to see him on this list, well, let's be real, no one cared about him until he joined AEW. And this list is supposed to be about the IWC, but if it really bothers you, just consider OC as an alternate for this list. But with that being so, that doesn't mean that there isn't another Partnerhausen somewhere on this list, such as... Jake Parnell, also beginning his career in 2013, originally wrestled under his real name, and he did so in the state of Illinois, wrestling with Dynamo Pro Wrestling. He would first join the Viking War Party and earn the name of the Little Viking. However, in 2019, he began a new character, which was inspired by his love of heavy metal music, as well as other popular face-painted wrestlers. And so, with that, he became the character known as Warhorse, which brought him to such heights such as winning the IWTV Championship by defeating Eric Stevens. He would also become a part of Game Changer Wrestling, where he would partner up with the previously mentioned Danhausen to form the team of Warhausen. And then in 2020, Warhorse would appear in All Elite Wrestling, where he would contend for the TNT Championship against then champion Cody Rhodes. Unsuccessfully, of course. And yes, he also took that horrendous, awful face bump, but we're not going to be showing that now, are we? Bill and Randy Mulkey, for some odd reason, have become an extremely popular tag team amongst very specific members of the IWC. Now, most normal wrestling fans have no idea who these two are, nor should they, even if they have potentially seen them wrestle a bunch of times. These two siblings formed an uber jobber team who allegedly went 180 matches without a win. Now, they primarily wrestled in the NWA and for Jim Crockett Promotions, and were meant to be a complete and total background team, with nobody paying any attention to them whatsoever. But then, for some reason, deep-cut IWC trolls went ahead and started praising this duo, making a big deal out of them when they were really nothing important, professing terms like Mulkey Mania, or proclaiming that the Mulkey brothers were really hardworking and that they always respected them and always wanted them to get some attention. Internet, the Mulkey brothers suck. Stop trying to make fetch happen. PCO, or as some fans might first remember him as Jean-Pierre Lafitte, or even the Quebecer, was born Carl Ole, before eventually landing at his acronym moniker, which started out standing for Pierre Carl Ole, before it was eventually changed to Perfect Creation 1. Now, coming out of the new generation, PCO is probably one of the last wrestlers that anyone would expect to get over big with the IWC, but due to his age and his penchant for the extreme, PCO managed to gain a lot of popularity amongst a small base of fans, resulting in him being surprisingly popular in both Ring of Honor and Impact Wrestling. Now sure, some of us are always going to remember him as the WWF Pirate, but others are quite happy that even though he did debut in 1987, he's still going strong, and still taking bumps that men half his age wouldn't necessarily try. Okay, real quick, before we get into the last two entries, allow me to say that if you're enjoying this list so far, please give this video a big like, and furthermore than that, also make sure that you're a member of the Know-It-All Nation by subscribing to this channel, as everyone who subscribes helps me get one step closer to my goal of getting that silver play button that I'm long overdue for. And for all of you who already did subscribe, allow me to say that I really do appreciate it. Now, with that being said, let's continue the list. When you think of Michael Jackson, professional wrestling is probably not the first additional thought that comes to mind. But while pro wrestling and the King of Pop might not be the first pairing that you or I think of, Santana Jackson certainly did. Now, he's a real-life Michael Jackson impersonator, and he decided to combine that with his love of pro wrestling. And recently, he was attacked by a heckler in a crowd during a show, but Santana wouldn't moonwalk away from this one, because not only did he fight back, but he also won against his attacker. So I guess when Santana Jackson talks about beat it, he ain't talking about leaving a fight, he's talking about winning it. But aside from this, Santana has been known for incorporating a lot of Michael Jackson's signature dance moves into his routine, getting him over with members of the IWC. And while not every wrestling fan out there is going to think of Santana Jackson's matches as thrillers, there are still many fans out there who will always remember the time that they saw Santana Jackson wrestle, and they'll view it as something that's really off the wall. Man, documentaries sure are a powerful thing. Because somehow, just one simple documentary managed to turn a lot of wrestling fans around on David Arquette, the person, or shall I say the actor, who had no business winning the WCW World Championship. And sure, they love to make the excuses that he didn't really want it. Well, you know what, if he really didn't want to become WCW champion, he could have easily refused it. No one can make anyone win a match if they don't wanna. But furthermore, watching him work in the independent circuits and training seems to have easily won over a couple of people in the IWC, who either don't remember just how atrocious Arquette's win was, or they're just that gullible to think that there's any way that he could redeem himself, or has any business in the wrestling community outside of being just a fan. Yes, wrestling fans are a forgiving bunch, but they don't have to go this far out of their way in order to prove it. Well, there you go, 7 internet flavors of the month, but were some more that you could think of? Let me know down in the comments, and please be sure that you're subscribed to Dave Knows Wrestling, as it really does help. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my awesome Patreon supporters. And as always, Dave knows